The Salesforce ecosystem has generated around 300,000 new jobs last year, and it's estimated that 1.9 million jobs will be created in the Salesforce ecosystem around the world by the end of 2020. Salesforce also has 2 roles in the top 10 of highest paid tech jobs in the world. But this doesn't really surprise me, as Salesforce really does know how to sell their products. And there is a need for an army of people to help companies be successful with Salesforce. So there is a demand for skills across the world, but in some regions, there may be more demand and others less. But it really depends on how mature each of those regions has become. But at the end of the day, Salesforce is interested in selling licenses for its products. And the implementation and configuration of those products is generally left up to the customer to self-implement or work with a Salesforce partner or Salesforce professional services to get the work done. Now, I've noticed 2 main ways where people enter the Salesforce ecosystem. On one side, you have those people with a business background in, say, administration or maybe management. They may not be that technical, well, in our stereotypical world of what technical is, but these backgrounds tend to enter roles of Salesforce administrator, CRM manager, or Salesforce consultant, or something like that. On the other side, we have the technical stream of people, the code developers, the DevOps, the architects, and not surprisingly, these roles tend to end up being Salesforce developers, Salesforce technical architects, and things like that. So there's a couple of different places where you can find a job, either at an end user who's using Salesforce or at a Salesforce partner. So when I started my sales career, I actually started at a Salesforce partner. For me, I had seen the technology and I wanted to be totally immersed in it. At a Salesforce partner, I knew I'd work on many different projects across many different industries using many different Salesforce products. For me, it was the best thing I did, although at times a little mental. Now, there are 2 types of Salesforce partners: the consulting partners that do consulting and implementation of products, and the ISV partners that create apps on the App Exchange. There are a number of different roles in the Salesforce ecosystem, each having a different skill set, and my great friends at Mason Frank International publish a yearly report on the Salesforce ecosystem, which goes into a load of detail around the different job roles and the ranges of salary in different countries. Now, all the salaries I'm going to show you are average permanent salaries. But in their full report, you can see entry and senior level salaries, as well as freelancer rates. To see the full report, just use the link at the bottom of this slide. So the first role is the Salesforce administrator. Now, a lot of people enter the industry as an administrator, or in some cases, an accidental admin, because their company has just purchased Salesforce and it's given to them to sort it out, with no experience whatsoever. So this role can be a little bit misleading, as it can turn out to be a bit of a jack of all trades, part admin, part system configurator, part project manager, part business analyst. The list goes on. This happens particularly in smaller companies, but jumping in at the deep end is the best way to learn, in my opinion, with some great online training by the side. Next up is the Salesforce developer. Now, this can be one of 2 focuses: either the app builder developer, who knows the configuration and process development side of Salesforce really well, and maybe a small bit of code, or the code developer that loves everything, Apex, Visualforce, and Lightning components, basically all things code. Then we have the technical consultant. Now, this was my first role in Salesforce. I knew a lot of theory around how Salesforce worked and had come from a technical background. So this role you find mostly at consultancies. They essentially advise the clients or company that they're working with on the best use of Salesforce based on their clients' requirements, but with a technical slant, maybe advising them on how to integrate or develop within Salesforce. A functional consultant is essentially exactly the same as a technical consultant, except they have a functional or declarative slant and have a good knowledge of the configuration side of Salesforce and not so much the coding and integration. So requirements are core to the business analyst role. They're defining and documenting the business requirements for the project. Now, the real art of the business analyst is pulling out all those exceptions to the normal way of doing things, so the implementation of the project doesn't go caca. But a great business analyst understands Salesforce, and when they develop the new business processes, they can harness the power of Salesforce into those processes to make the project a much bigger success. The solution architect role is all about translating the business requirements into a blueprint for implementing Salesforce. This role typically has a lot of knowledge of the Salesforce platform and related systems, but this is also an important role in making sure the solution fits into the organization's enterprise architecture plans too, if they have hit that maturity level in the corporate architecture. And finally, we have the technical architect. Now, this role is similar to the solutions architect, but may be working at a much bigger scale or working with a number of solution architects to make sure that the overall architecture is going to work. This role tends to be quite technical, and the technical architect usually has many years' experience designing and solutioning systems, both with Salesforce as well with other systems and integrations. So these are my top roles. There are a load more, including CRM manager, project manager, etc. You can see the full list in the Mason Frank report. But next, let's take a look at the salaries. The salaries, as mentioned, these are average salaries. If you want to know what a junior or senior rate is, or even a freelancer rate, then check out Mason Frank's Salesforce salary survey, which is packed full of information, not just salaries. A link is below. So first up, admins. Now this is generally where the majority of people come into Salesforce. As you can see, it's actually quite a good rate at 104K. Next up, we have Salesforce developers at 135K, technical consultants at 146K, functional consultants at 126K, business analysts at 114K, Salesforce solution architects at 136K, and the final top role, the Salesforce technical architect at 161K. Now this is where things get interesting, especially if you compare UK salaries with US salaries. If you are based in the UK, you are looking at approximately 20 to 50% less than our US counterparts in rates. But I really see the UK and Europe as a growth market for Salesforce, and I've seen this within my own Salesforce consultancy. People are a lot more aware of what Salesforce is and interested in getting it. I'm getting more and more calls to do presentations for groups and companies across Europe on how Salesforce can shape and improve businesses, as well as a lot more consultancy work for the team. If you consider the currency fluctuations between the US and the UK, that 20 to 50% difference may be less of an issue. Generally, you end up getting a little bit more money if you're working in Germany than you do in the UK. But this, again, may be a little bit of an issue due to the current currency fluctuations between the UK and EU at the moment. But a couple of interesting points. A business analyst tends to get less in Germany than in the UK. And solution architects do earn more money in Germany. But this may be due to having less demand in Germany for technical architects. As these are average salaries, if you do want to see the junior or senior rates for these roles, be sure to check out the link below, as well as the different roles that you can get within the German market. Now, I haven't gone into the salaries for France and Australia, but you can get all the different salaries from the Mason Frank report. The survey also has a lot of information, including how the market is changing. In percentage terms, it covers the increase in Salesforce projects, as well as how companies are migrating to Salesforce using partners or doing it themselves, and typical timeframes for implementations. But there's one stat that I think is really quite interesting, and that is how often do you work from home? As you can see, almost half the people say that they work from home at least one day a week. And the big reason for this is because everything is on the cloud, and you can work on implementing Salesforce from anywhere in the world. Now, this gives you great flexibility for when you're working, but also you can do crazy things like doing Salesforce deployments while you're on a train, which I've done once, probably not again. So Salesforce is quite cagey on how many customers use what products, but this could be really useful information to understand, as it can inform where trends are and where the demand is. But we do have another trick up our sleeve, and that's looking at job adverts and the requirements within those ads. So based on this, we can determine the most popular products in Salesforce and potentially the areas we want to concentrate when we're learning. So the most popular product that was mentioned in 84% of job adverts is, drumroll, the Sales Cloud. Now, this isn't that surprising as it's part of the Salesforce core platform and the first thing that Salesforce developed. Next up is Chatter. Now, this is a collaboration tool for Salesforce, and I think this is just a general thing that people put in all job adverts as there isn't much configuration or setting up of Chatter. Next, at 66%, is the Salesforce platform. More and more companies are using the platform to build their own apps to solve their own business problems, but also customizing their sales and service products to fit the needs of the business. So this is where a lot of the configuration and coding happens. Next up with 57% is Service Cloud. Again, not as surprising as this is part of the core platform and the second major product that Salesforce developed. And finally, and most interestingly, out of the top 5 products, at 46% is Salesforce Lightning. Now this is interesting and a growth area within Salesforce. As I mentioned earlier, Salesforce now has 2 user interfaces, the Lightning UI and the Classic UI. But now a lot of companies are looking for Lightning resources so they can first migrate their applications over to Lightning, as well as develop new Lightning components. Now, one of the great things for developers is Lightning is a JavaScript framework, and so new developers coming onto the platform will find it a little bit easier to learn, unlike the current Salesforce developers whose skill base is mainly Apex, Visualforce, and HTML. So here are the rest of the products that appear in adverts. We've got Community Cloud, App Cloud, and Marketing Cloud. These are not surprising as they are quite big products. We've got Data.com, which I haven't talked much about in this course, but we've also got Salesforce Analytics, Salesforce IQ, Desk.com, Heroku, Internet of Things, and Thunder. So where do you find out more about Salesforce? We have a number of Salesforce courses to get you started. The Salesforce Certified Admin course is designed for people who have never used Salesforce before, and their aim is getting a Salesforce certification, or a lot of people just use it for reference. We also have the Admin's Guide to the Developer Console, which is focused around more advanced administrators who want to know how Salesforce runs under the hood. There's also the Trailblazer community, which is Salesforce's community of users, where you can ask questions, read blogs, and find out about user groups, events, Trailhead, and so much more. You can get to it by going to success.salesforce.com. So I hope you liked the video so far. If you do have any questions, be sure to put them in the comments.